Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Hobby Hour with Dan, myself, Stuart, and a special guest today. We have Chris Peach, or Peachy, as he's well known. Well, hello everybody. How are we all doing? Dan, how's life been treating you?
Yeah, really, really good. It's not been that long since we last recorded, so yeah,
For
good.
us.
Thanks. I have more sleep.
And of course, our special guest, Peachy. How are you doing, mate?
I am grand, thank you. Looking forward to it as well. I like a good chin waggle with fellow-minded hobbyists. So thanks for having me on.
No problem. I thought we'd better cajole you in after beating you at the Warlord Open Day. So I thought send you a message while you still remember who I am.
Yeah, and, it was great.
We'll
really nice chatting. Enjoyed that.
Well, it was good. So for some people may not know who you are, would you like to give a little bit of an intro to who you are, what you do in the hobby?
Yes, I'm formerly of Games Workshop. I used to be an army painter and on the TV channel. Now I run or co-run because Pat is the brains, a YouTube channel called The Painting Phase, where predominantly it's supposed to be painting, but we do a lot of chats and they seem to do quite well. But it is the painting phase, so sometimes those chats are for when people are at home doing their painting phase, as opposed to us doing tuition videos or painting videos. So yeah, it's a bit of a mishmash. We have like a chat show, and then I just do lots of paint guides on trying to get things on the tabletop pretty quick, and then some extra steps if you want to, tart them up a little bit, make them look a little bit more splendid, make the sergeants look a bit better, make the officers look a bit better. So yeah, a lot of old school, or at least the things I've learned over the years of being an army painter, being thrown into that. But yeah, chatting to lots of guests as well, like the likes of Gary Morley and Trish Cardinal and stuff. Recently, Suggs. Sorry, you probably hear the child going up to bed now. Get away, get to sleep, sod off.
Not picking it up here. Mine are being strangely quiet for this time. Dan and I quite often have to pause the start of the show as it sounds like Armageddon going on in the background. It's bath times are never quiet. But no, it's really good to have you on. So what we normally do at this stage of the show is do a little bit of a kind of catch up of what we've been up to in the hobby. So as you're here, let's start with you, Peachy. What have you been doing recently in your own personal hobby? What have you been painting and working on?
Lots of things. I'm a little bit all over the place, and I need to focus. But at the moment, I've been playing a few games of Chosen Men. So I've done some British, which was a lot of older stuff. Well, I say older stuff. There's some new stuff as well. I rebased a lot of my old Black Powder, not all of it, because I still want to play Black Powder. So I've rebased a handful of those for Chosen Men, which is a cool skirmish game. If no one's played it, it's one of those Osprey rules. I've painted from scratch a load of French as well, because that was all done for a game with the guys called The Games Night. They invited me down, so I've sorted those out and had 2 forces, but I kind of been bitten by it. So I've started to do some Prussians now. I've got some reservists. I've got some Fusiliers. I've also ordered loads more French, so I can have like Bavarians in there and all sorts. So I'm gonna have a mishmash. I've fallen down the rabbit hole of Napoleonics again, and which is great. Amongst that, I've got like Shatterpoint stuff to do as well, because I've been like slowly but surely getting like Shatterpoint sets and been painting them up in between. Sometimes if I feel like I just need something different, so been doing Padmes, Handmaidens, and like Sabe and stuff like that. Sabe, don't know her name. Keira Knightley, the one who plays Keira Knightley. The one who plays Keira Knightley? I don't think that's true. The other way around. The handmaiden that plays Keira Knightley. That's how it works. And then because I got a load of Napoleonics, I got handed to me a little while back by Pete the Wargamer a copy of the Silver Bayonet, and I've been reading through it, and oh my, I am so excited about that. I literally last night built up my British, what would you call it? Warband, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
It's so cool. I mean, I've like so much plastic stuff from the Perry's, Vic's Tricks, as well as War Games Atlanta that do the Riflemen. There's so many like little bits and bobs in there that you can just like go to town and just make what you want. I don't know if have you seen the rules yet for
I've not read them. It's a game that's on my might want to try out list. We might cover this later on in our main sort of discussion, because Napoleonic Skirmish is something that I want to find a set of rules that not only I want to play, that
Yep.
I can get that other bloke on the cast with us at the moment going with it, because he likes a bit of sharp, don't you, Dan?
Yeah.
I love Napoleonic
Thought
hero. I just don't
painting a
want to paint
massive bit up.
200 of them.
Amazing. Well, I'll save the rest of that conversation for later.
Yeah,
I've got so many things to talk about because it's so cool. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Perfect. And you're very, very succinct as well. Dan and I may go off a little bit longer, who knows? But sometimes I go down slight rabbit holes with things. But lots of things that are very poignant with our discussion later on, so that will fitting quite nicely. What about yourself then, Dan? Have you I've seen some pictures. You've sent me some things you've been up to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've been building loads of undead stuff for Old World. There's loads of Cursed City, some Underworlds, warbands and stuff that I'm co-opting into that. So slowly amassing the shambling hordes. Haven't done any painting. It's been a bit warm, and then this last week or so it's been quite busy. So I have done some reading. I've been reading, if people see this, it's Dawn of Fire book.
Very nice.
Been reading a bit of that. Not really done a lot else. They've just released a new author illustrated Hobbit, and I must have 4 or 5 copies, so I've just bought another one. But it matches my Silmarillion and my Lord of the Rings that he's done recently. So he's obviously not. He's been gone a while, but they have decided to re-release in wonderful hardback with all these illustrations and maps and stuff on. So I've ordered that. And that's about the length of what I've done, really. It's not been a particularly hobby-centric couple of weeks.
But I would love that Hobbit book, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole of getting all matching copies. I've got everything, and it just gets too expensive. And then they'll bring out new special editions, and before you know it,
and I'll buy those too. I did go to Warhammer World, funnily enough, we were discussing Alex and Tom. Alex's stag. So I was at Warhammer World, played some Middle-earth. My mate Ben got into play his first game Middle-earth. He painted up a Minas Tirith army in like a week. Ooh. So fair play to him. Then properly stoved his head in with my Mordor. But we had a really good time. Got dripped on by the air conditioning, which was really nice on a really hot day. But it was so drippy. And yeah, it was a real good time. So that's about the extent of my hobby for the last week or two. But I
think I saw you in the back of a picture from someone put on Facebook.
Not a flattering picture. Don't put that up on here. I'll be very cross with you.
Do it.
As a child, I wouldn't even considered it before he mentioned it. To be honest,
you should totally do it then.
Yeah.
Talking of pictures, actually, Peachy, if you've got any pictures of stuff you're working on, send them over afterwards, and I'll pop them in where we were talking about the miniatures and things.
Yeah, sure.
I tend to break up the video a little bit rather than just staring at our faces all the time. So
that's something I need to do more with the painting phases. We talk about a lot of stuff people are working on, and they just never show any pictures. But
model cam.
Yes, well, that's we've got a 360 machine. We just, when there's 4 of us, so it's like Jeff, Pat, myself, and then the guest, all the cameras are gone. So when we move into a studio, which is on the card, sorry, I know you've got to talk about your hobby yet.
Still. No, I'm interested, which is good.
But we're looking, we've said yes to a space. It's next door but one to Wargames Illustrator, not far from Battlefront, so it's really close to like other sort of hobby-centric businesses. We said yes. I think it's about end of May, start of June time, and we're still like it's taking forever. We're just like, we want to pay you to use your like office space that you're not using, and it's something to do with the premises owners as opposed to the actual sublet. But hopefully this month, it feels like World War One. It'll be over by Christmas. I'm sure it will. So hopefully soon we'll get there, and we'll have like designated areas, and all we have to do is like move the old camera. So hopefully we'll have like a space to have like hobby cam, so you can see the miniatures whilst we talk through stuff. And because we'll be editing there as well, we can just chuck on some pictures. But I've got a few Napoleonic themed stuff, but I do need to take some new photos for some of the other things I painted as well. But I'll just chuck some stuff your way. But yeah,
I'll pop them up as we're chatting. It's all good to see.
Nice.
Though no one's probably watching now because they're treating it like a podcast and they got their head down on their miniatures and stuff. But someone will look at it. I'll look at it when I put when I insert it into the video. God, what have I've been up to a fair bit actually, not as much as I had last time around. So obviously painted that dreadnought that's for a tutorial that we mentioned before the before we started recording. If you haven't watched that video, please do, because
go watch it now.
Watch it. I think that's the Napoleonic and pike and shot fans are going.
Just painted it blue.
Not interested. Why have you put 40k on your channel, Stuart? You're disappointing us. I hooked them all in, Peachy, because when I started the channel, it was so I could talk about epic battles, American Civil War at the time when Warlord first released that. Because we couldn't really talk about it on our Middle Earth podcast, so I started the channel so I could make some videos about that, and then it just sort of took over and became all of my hobby. But for a long time it was just historical stuff on there, and I slowly started to sneak in other things, and I'm sure there's some people that have been around from the beginning that maybe not quite so interested in the in the slight changing content, shall we say. But so I did that. I painted the damsel for a video, had an old it's 6th edition damsel, and I thought, if I don't paint this one now and the new one gets on, I'm never going to paint it. So,
is this mounted or foot damsel?
It's a mounted one. So I did that. I did some bits for the new epic. There's some new epic battles, American Civil War bits that Warlord kindly gave me. So I painted those, and Geek Gaming CMix sent me some trial ready basing mix that's designed for small scale stuff. So I used that video to kind of show that off, really. But other than that, lots of planning and lots of ordering stuff, which kind of relates to the second half of the show, really. So I've got I did a castle, an old fortress, Citadel Fortress, as a video a couple of weeks back, and I want to turn that into linked to my Bretonnian army for the old world. The plan is to build it in part of my own lore for them, but also link it in with games of Mordheim. And rather than Mordheim set in Mordheim, they're going to be set in the old world timeline in the Border Princes, where this small town, castle town is going to be. So the idea is to turn it use it as a siege table, but then also realign it and build loads of buildings and make a Mordheim table. And then the lore, so when we're playing Mordheim, it's within that town, kind of microcosm, zooming in on what's going on, and then obviously the games, the old world zoom out. Dan and I are quite narratively focused on our
that's
games.
Awesome.
So that's the plans. I've been ordering loads of those. We're both suck at winning games, so we
same.
So we just say it's narrative because it's easier.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I've just been ordering lots of stuff off eBay and trying to keep it mainly GW, so I could take it to take it along and play up at Warhammer World. So that meant ordering lots of Lake Town houses. So scale maybe slightly small, but that kind of building was perfect. They were all small doors and things then anyway, weren't they? Those sort of medieval. So Lake Town houses are perfect for that kind of medieval sort of wooden framed buildings and things. So I've got some of those on the go, and so lots of planning and ordering stuff, and then lots of ordering stuff to make my war bands, which I want to link with WarCry as well. So I bought the new WarCry Star, the small one. Just how
I need to get that. I need to get it. Not for the figures, because I got the figures like twice, 3 times over. It was the cards and the scenery.
Right. I wanted the scenery's nice, and that's going to appear at the back of my little as like an edge of a graveyard on my little Mordheim board. But if the plan is to try and do a kind of double use war band, so my son wants to use vampires, and I always like to build 2 things and have an opposing force so people can come and play a game that you wouldn't normally. So I've been ordering zombies and ghouls and direwolves and things, enough to make a 500-point Mordheim warband. But hope then to also be able to add that to what you get in that little starter to make it usable for WarCry. And then I can't do the Witch Hunters fully yet because I'm waiting for the Wilder Corpse Hunters to come out. So I'm going to use them as the core of my henchmen. But then I've got they're behind me on the shelf. Hexbane's Hunters.
Yes.
Perfect.
So I'm not the first person to do that. Like everyone else is Witch Hunter, but using those as well for the other half.
I mean, you've got like this Curse City guy, which I always forget his name. Janus, Garrus, Derek, something. That's a dude. And then you got Derek. We'll call him Derek. You got the 2 Van Galens. The
they're really nice.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah.
So you've got like a whole bunch of witch hunter.
Quite a few to.
Yeah, and then the Wilder Core absolutely makes perfect sense. I'm waiting for those. I've got some of the Cities of Sigma stuff, which I'm just gonna play around with and have a lot of fun with. But yeah, I mean, have you seen my Sisters of Sigma warband I did on Instagram?
Yeah, I think so.
So I use the 40k Sister Battle Novitiates, and then just because it's great if you wanted like I suppose a bodyguard for the damsels, maybe. It's not lore, but you can make your own lore up for the border princes. Because they've all got fleur-de-lis on them, I just like shave some of those off, and they have like a big stonky one on their forehead. So I just cut it down. It just looks like a circlet because you've got like a little bit of a nose guard on it. And I just give them like shield, because they all come with like auto guns or whatever the specialists are, or also pistols and swords. And the pistols, you can just cut the pistols out, you can stick a shield right there, and any of the weird specialists that might have like double-handed things or whatever, you can just replace those with hammers and stuff. So they fit perfectly for Sisters of Sigma. So we need to like combine and get my Sister of Sigma to smite your witch hunters, because, well, as the law suggests, your witch hunters hate my Sisters of Sigma because they're clearly heretics for surviving the apocalyptic. But then it's a different it's Mordheim, isn't it? Because it's border princes, so it's Mordheim.
Yeah, it's going to be Mordheim, and then set in a different time again. Yeah. But I'm just basically using it as a skirmish campaign engine.
Yeah, that's great. But, makes a lot of sense. Such a good system.
I'm now debating rounds.
The woman on the chair, because you could use that, some of it for a Grail Reliquary for Britannia. You could convert it, and then you can salvage the rest of the parts. I've managed to secure the not quite zombie, not quite skeleton, playing the flute, the Duke guy from the neck. So someone's already promised me that now, so I can use that for my unit fill for my zombies.
Oh, I like that. I'm just debating now about squares or rounds, because rounds for WarCry, obviously. And I know I can use rounds for more time. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I was saying, like, link everything together.
Yeah.
These Hexbane, the witch hunters, I want them to go in a future Empire army for the old world, become the militia. Again,
magnetize the feet.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's what I'm thinking of doing. So it's going to be a interesting video. But I'm thinking that's what, because I'm doing it for them, I might have to do it for the undead warband as well. So I might just maybe not everything. There might be some things that don't work in both. So the dregs I'm going to build won't. I don't think there's anything I could use them for in WarCry. So, but anyway, that's the plan. So quite a complicated plan, and I'm waiting for God knows when the Wilder Corpse is out, and it looks like it's going to be one of those big sets. So I'm going to have to buy the whole box and get the other half. It looks so.
Well, it's supposed to be a WarCry warband as well. It's pitched as a WarCry warband as well as its own unit box set. So I imagine it will come out as a separate thing. Fingers crossed.
A long time. I can't wait. It'll be
2 to 3 months, isn't it?
I want them now. These are videos I'm planning this autumn, hopefully. So we'll.
What's the other half going to be?
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yes, gorgeous. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm not worried about having them. I'll sell them or use them as for WarCry. It's not the end of the world. And as I said, I want to start playing a bit of WarCry. Quite like the idea with WarCry too. It's probably for the chat for the second half, really. But I quite like the idea of WarCry being something I can play with my son. I've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. The 8-year-old will play games and things, and there's some Saturday afternoons where I could play a game at the kitchen table. That's quick, but I can't get him up to the games room and on the table here because the 4-year-old he's not going to want to sit and watch us play that. But downstairs in the living area we could do that, and I think WarCry might be a nice.
The rules lend to. I mean, even my lad, he's coming up to 6. He's got a bit of a grasp of. Well, he likes dice, so he likes rolling dice. We started doing like some real basic rules, like some Star Wars figures, but he understands the fighter cards and he knows what they all mean now, which is great. So I'm like, do I get him to play a game of WarCry at the age of 6, or do I wait? But yeah, it's definitely if a 6-year-old can understand a fighter card and like what they all mean, I think your 8-year-old will be fine, won't he? Just like smashing those vampires or whatever against your Wilder Core, or sorry, not Wilder Core, your witch hunters.
he's played 3 games of 6th Ed Fantasy, so if he can just about manage that would help. He's going to be right. He's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
An investment in time.
It certainly is. So let's have a real short break now. We'll come come back and we'll pretty much continue that conversation on, but we'll talk about Skirmish Wargaming in general, focusing a lot on WarCry and Mordheim and the Napoleonic stuff, which I'm really interested in as well. So we'll see how we go. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. Right, so we are back after a slightly longer break than you guys have received watching at home, and we're here to talk about, I suppose, in general, skirmish gaming, but I want to sort of theme it around WarCry, Mordheim. Really interested in anything Napoleonic skirmish at the moment because it's a project that I've had in a box for quite a while myself, and I want to get Dan interested in it. So I'm interested in your recent experiences. That's quite timely. And I think I messaged you about you used SBG, didn't you, a long time? It's a Middle Earth strategy battle game. You used a conversion of that, and I asked you if you still had all your paperwork, but you didn't. So I'll be interested in that. But that's not a question anyway. That's just an over ramble. Let's start with WarCry, because I know you love the game.
Yeah.
What do you want to give the viewers a bit of a rundown of what WarCry is, assuming that a lot of people here probably not seen it before or only know of it as a product that Games Workshop do. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of what kind of game it is and what it's like?
So the way to describe it is it's a skirmish game. But I would say it's a fast-paced skirmish game. And it has a lot of the veins for me like Mordheim has, because you can play it narratively, you can play it match play. So there's rules for match play and stuff if you're into that kind of thing. But the narrative stuff is a lot more engaging, a lot more fun, especially when you build a warband up. So initially when WarCry came out, there was a set that came out with 2 warbands in it, all very chaos related. There was a lot of sort of vies for power across this one section in an area that's held by chaos called the Varanspire, or the All Points, and there's this one section of it called the Bloodwind Spoil, and you basically like collected different chaos warbands and fought against each other. But inevitably everyone doesn't want to play chaos. Some people want to play dwarves, some people want to play humans or orcs. So they made rules for each of those factions under like the different grand alliances. They've even started introducing their own box sets of those things as well. And for me, WarCry is one of those games that I guess I struggle when it comes to wargaming. It takes me a while to understand rules. It takes me a few playthroughs to get like the understanding of it. There's a few out there that I kind of clicked with straight away. Middle Earth strategy battle game is one of them, and WarCry is another. I had not played WarCry. I'd seen it. I'd done some videos for it, and I was like, it's not really for me. I like the models, but I don't think I'll play it. And then I was asked to do a battle report on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night for Warhammer TV. And I'd done some Daughters of Cain, some so old classic witch elves. If you don't know who Daughters of Cain are, they're just the classic witch elves. So I did a load of those, did them in red skin. It was based off a Red Sonja Dynamite Comics character called Purgatory. I just think she looks wicked, but she has like wings. These don't. They just have the same tone of skin with like lots of black leathers and silvers and stuff. So I did them all based off that. Something very different. You don't normally see Daughters of Cain with different skin tones. They're usually just like dark elves. So I was like, yeah, I'll play a game on live. I'll do that. And I took my Daughters of Cain. A guy called Ben Garlow, who was working for the Battle Report team. I don't think he does now. Now this is gone. He's moved on. He was teaching me through how to play. And it was like 40 minutes before we went live, something like that. And within the first turn, I clocked the rules and got it. And I was like, this is new for me. What? There was a few like little nuances that took a few turns to get my head around. Like there's stuff called the ability cards, and you depend on. There's a mechanic in the game where you roll to see who goes first for initiative in each turn, and you basically roll a bunch of dice and work out how many singles you got, how many doubles you got, how many triples you got. Those triples and doubles and quads all have an effect later on, but working out the singles determines who goes first in that turn, who's got the initiative. And I was like, well, that's cool. It took me a while to get my head around the abilities where you use these doubles and triples and stuff. That took me like 2 turns to get my head around. But as games go, I found I could play like in that night, I think we did 3 games, and it was like some of the scenarios. And this is the other bit I really like, that I'm sure there's other games out there I've not played, probably do a similar thing. I don't know, but I love the idea that you pick a card to work out where you deploy. If you're doing match play, you pick a card to work out where your scenery goes, and then you pick a card to work out your victory point conditions, and you pick a card to work out something called a twist. And there's a whole bunch of each of those cards, so you're never going to get the same game twice. And sometimes the game is against you, sometimes the game's with you, and sometimes the game hates you both, and you're both struggling through that scenario. And I really like that dynamic, because it doesn't matter about you pick a warband you love, because a lot of people have said this to me in the past, like, oh, which is the best warband to start with? It's like, there isn't one. You pick the one you like and you paint it and you have fun with it, because it's the cards that you pull out make it hard or not. And an example I've used in the past is I was playing against Carriage and Overlords. The first one was kind of like the floor is lava, so you have to like get off the ground floor and try and get like victory points being on raised areas. And I was just getting like shot to pieces, because every time I popped my ugly head up, I was just getting shot off by like all these like dwarfs with like their machine guns, because the Carriage and Overlord have loads of guns. So I was getting killed. So that scenario, I just got creamed in like the first 2 turns, and my opponent had like 21 victory points. I had like 1. So it was like, that was awful. But we laughed all the way through it, because it was just hilarious. The next game was him trying to get off. It was sort of like an ambush, and he had like 3 rounds, because it says you've got 3 rounds to do this. You deploy in the middle, and then he had to get off. And he's got short, stumpy little legs, and I've got really long legs, and I just chased after him, just murked a load of his characters and just separating them from each other. But as you play like a campaign, like a narrative campaign, certainly with the newer ones, the newer edition rules, you find out what happens to those at the end of it. They don't just like, you just go and play the next game. You might get leg injuries, you might get head injuries, you might die. Sometimes you might get rewards. The thing I've been liking to do as well is buy and make extra models and warriors and stuff. Like I've done a Minotaur, I've done like some Chaos Warriors, because I'm currently playing with a friend. I'm using Darko Savages, which are just barbarians, and they look mega. And I've bought an extra box of barbarians so I can do different weapon options and hire new ones in when they die. But I've like got like Chaos Warriors and like a Minotaur. I'm like, I want a Minotaur. How do I get a Minotaur? And there's actual scenarios that you have to do to earn a Minotaur, or earn like these extra characters. So you're like searching for them, or you're like getting the glory that these people like, I've heard glory from this warband, I'm going to go and join them. You're like, yes, I've got this guy working for me. And it does, like, you know, you get a bit of a war of escalation, where you might be like Necromunda. Sometimes your warband or your gang will be slightly higher than your opponent, but there is a bit of a cap with WarCry. There's only so high you can get, so it doesn't become too overpowered. But yeah, every game's different. It's fast paced, it's hilarious, some of the things happen, but you can literally use anything you want. And just, you know, my friends are like, you know, I want to play with these, can I do that? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was saying before we went on, or when we were on, I can't remember now, about my Sisters of Sigma. I wanted Sisters of Sigma, and I just found a way to use those, and I used the free guild rules and found a way to play with those. But the genius of this game is you can learn it in like the first turn, but it's all the nuances of when you employ these abilities, and like what distance to stick your fighters at, which fight you activate before the next one, what ability they use. Can I get a triple so I can use that ability? Because if I get that, I win the game. If I don't, I'm not going to win the game, or it will be close. And the fact that the rule set has been out, 4 years now, and has had 2 minor rule changes, and then just some extra updates for like the campaigns and stuff, says a lot about the rule system, really. The one rule change that was like a big rule change in my head was you have an ability called Onslaught, which adds 1 to your attacks. They changed it from 1 to your attacks to 1 to your melee attacks, because some people were using it for bows because they didn't specify it. So I was like, oh, so that's the only rule change we've had in 4 years. Cool. That says it.
Stop volley fire for Middler. Take that away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I think I find I can add more narrative hooks in there. I started doing a campaign on Twitch during lockdown, where I we all getting a bit bored just doing like online streaming, and we just wanted to do something a bit different. So I ran a little session, it was like a small campaign, and I got a cardboard box, a couple of like webcams, and just did like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, just using characters, but using WarCry rules. The only thing I couldn't use was like get your tape measure and measure, because I was there and they were at home. So I had to like give them an idea roughly how far they were away, but it didn't take anything away from it. It was so adaptable. But yeah, it's just fast paced. Anyone can learn it. And I use me as an example. I'm really bad at recall and remembering rules unless I played through it like I say quite a few times. But yeah, it's good that I can just pick up a rule system and not play it for a month or two and still know what I'm doing with it, and just go, oh yeah, that's fine. I know what I'm doing with this because I've played it, a handful of times, and it's really easy to pick up. I've waxed lyrical enough about that. I apologize.
No, it was a good intro. It sounds like it's got a really good hook. So that dice mechanic at the beginning.
Oh God, yeah,
different,
yeah,
modern, streamlined, and then you add all the complexity and the meta, I suppose, via the special rules and interactions afterwards, which is almost before Age of Sigmar, I suppose, back in the days of the old fantasy sort of profile was a very staid way of doing a game, and all these new games came around, War Machine, then we had Malifaux and things like that. They were all
Warhammer Skirmish,
they're all kind of different in their hooks, almost more simple in their hooks. And it sounds like something very different in some ways.
On the face of it, it does look like a really simple rule system, and it's been given a lot of stick for like, oh, it's a game designed for kids. And I usually hear that from like, not saying, no, I'm not tying everyone with the same brush, but a fair few like match play players who go, oh, it's not for me because it's for kids. It's like, yeah, because you can't use meta, and you can't like design a list that will destroy every army because you've done all the maths. This game is based on the pure fact of chance, depending on what your victory condition is and what your twist is, that literally you have no control over unless you lie and fix the deck to win. But you have to think on your feet to win the scenario, which I love, because it doesn't matter how many warriors you've got in your warband or how tough they are. If that twist card, and I'm just chucking another example of a buddy in the studio, he was like, I'm going to get Stormcast. I'm going to get the Vigilers, which are the ones with like the robes and the bows. They're like the newer Stormcast dudes. And he was like, yeah, because they move faster. They got the same amount of wounds as Stormcast. They fight just as well, but they can shoot a bow. And I was like, God bless you, not played WarCry before, have you? And he was just like, what do you mean? I was like, I've got the best warband. I've done the maths. I was like, cool, yeah, all right, we'll play a game. First like card we pulled out for the twist was he can't see past 6 inches, so his bows are useless. And it was capture a load of objectives, and I had more figures. I was like, we'll see how we get on then. He lost it. But he was like, oh, this game, it's quite challenging, isn't it, really? I was like, yeah. It's challenging but fun.
I do like the sound of it. It's because I've never really kind of moved into the AOS narrative, really. It's never it's never grabbed me. I don't dislike. I think it's really impressive what they've done, but I've not yet been hooked in. And a bit like you like your humans in things, don't you? So because they didn't have that at launch as such, I just never kind of looked at it really. If they'd launched Age of Sigmar with the Cities of Sigmar as it is now, or earlier into the game, that may well have been enough to hook me in, so to speak. But I always love, for me to get my head narratively into a world, I need to be able to imagine what it's like to go and buy a loaf of bread, what it's like to walk down a street, all that kind of stuff. And it was missing that. I know it's all there now, but it's almost, and I may well be drawn into it, but and that's probably another reason why WarCry, I've looked at it, I thought it looks an interesting game. But like you said, all the Chaos Warbands and stuff, beautiful miniatures, but just, I want to, I want to love these models and think of a narrative for them. And sometimes for me, they're all super evil, bad people. I can't do that. I mean, to have
there is a guy out there, Barry, his name is. He's got a website called Optimal Game State, and he has all the cards, all the fighter cards on there, and all the stats. So if you wanted to just, because all the rules are free. This is the other thing I'd not even paid attention to. You can go on the community website, you can get all the rules and all the faction rules for free. They're just downloadable PDFs, so you don't actually have to pay for anything other than some physical figures. You don't even have to use the tokens if you don't want to. You can use your own tokens, but I mean, it's good to get them. But he does like customizable creator cards where you can like just click the one that you want, and that's how I did my Sisters of Sigma. I literally went, because I knew I was going to use Free Guild, which are like the Sisters of Sigma, because they are similar, like humanoids, and instead of great swords, I want some with great hammers. So I'd use the great sword rules for those. And there's ones with shields and swords, so I can have like small hammers and shields if I wanted to, or swords and shields. But you could put your own picture of your figure onto his thing. And then if you wanted to make your own character and you've played a few games, you got used to go, I'm going to, right, guys, we're doing a campaign. I've got the big bad. He's called Stuart the Slaughterer. And he's this big sort of like burly looking chaos warlord. And I've given him my own stats and this, that, and the other. And like people play against him. And that's, you know, it's like an arena game. You want to do an arena game, you've got to fight the arena champion. You can literally do what you want, but you can also look at the existing rules and tweak them to your model. So you can do your Witch Hunter warband. And you can, I mean, against mates, you do what you want. If it was a tournament, you'd have to be, you know, following like the set rules. But I've got a friend that just wants to just like, I just want this character and this character and this character. I was like, we'll find a way of using them. But that's a different faction. Don't care. We're not playing for money and we're mates. Who cares? As long as you're having fun and playing a war, you know, we're doing a story. We're not here for like, you know, winning money or anything like that. So yeah, there's lots of support out there to be able to enjoy that journey and do more with it. Like Lord of the Rings as well. It's like an easy game to learn but hard to master, which is perfect. And yeah,
we've yet to get there.
Yes, yeah. Same.
What about you, Dan? Have you ever been tempted into WarCry?
I love the models. There's such a wealth of beautiful miniatures in there. I have to admit, there's certain warbands you see a lot of, mostly as parts, like Corvus Cabal. You see parts of those everywhere. Very rarely as the Corvus Cabal, but usually just completely stripped apart to, like every Raven Guard player's bought that box set.
Yes,
every single one. And I mean, some of the models, I have only really seen them recently. They're sort of Cathayan vampires.
Oh, yes, I know. I've got them here. I don't want to blur the camera. Is it a Skirgan True Blades?
That's it. And they've got these. It's got like a weird wolfy Vargol thing, and the only reason because Richard Gray's been painting one of the models from that for ages, and I think he submitted them for Golden Demon, and I had no idea where it came from. I was like, "This is beautiful," and I looked, and I did the usual thing on Games Workshop. I looked for a little bit, went, I can't find it, I can't be bothered, turned it off again. And then I was in Warhammer World recently, and I was like, "Oh, these are cool. Oh, that's where that model's from." And there's some of the models are beautiful, and some of the standalone ones they've done, like is it the Ogroid? You see a lot of the painters have done him. He's really pretty, and I mean, and I think they've done a better job of keeping the models around them. Perhaps they've done, like, at the moment I'm trying to get a bunch of the Underworld's warbands, and you can't get them. They've become stupidly expensive as well. But the fact they've just maintained that WarCry warband, that's been really cool.
And the great thing is they've not updated it, but they did a Tome of Champions 2021, I think it was, and that had all the rules for the Underworld warbands in it as well. So any Underworld warbands you have, you could use in WarCry. What is really interesting as well is I love the fact that the sculptors are given that kind of like free reign to like sculpt something different for WarCry or Underworlds, and then that sometimes influences like releases later on, because that Ogroid Myrmidon influenced the Ogroid Theridons, I think they're called, which is like the sort of multi-part.
For Slaves to Darkness.
Yes, for Slaves to Darkness. And
they're beautiful.
I mean, I've got one painted, which is me, my Minotaur with a big sword. But I got because I love the Dark Age Savages. They are my barbarians of choice.
Yeah,
but
they're cool.
The set builds 10 figures, which you can obviously use in WarCry. That's what they're designed for. But I think you can build every figure with it. Like the pose is the same, but you can swap out the weapons in the head. So you can have quite a selection of different weapons and heads. So you can get quite a few different variants from the models in that set. And they're like perfect for Marauders, for Old Hammer and Warhammer. It's like, to me, that is the Marauder set. Because the Marauders are a bit dated now. They're quite chunky and a bit sort of like, the mold lines on them are going to be beefy, as well as the models. But the
hands
new...
and heads, massive.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, massive eyebrows as well. Love those guys, but they've served their purpose. we need new ones.
The new Ghoul, or whatever they call Flesh Eater Courts WarCry warbands.
Yes,
Some of those models are good. I think I'll probably use them in amongst to do some ghouls for Old World.
Have they got Undead Baboons? Is that the one that's got the Undead Baboon?
Yes. The fate. They're like a dire wolf always running to a wall.
Yeah.
It's they're funny looking creatures, but the actual ghouls in it, stunning. And the guy, you can swap his hand over. He's got an axe or whatever out of his.
Cool.
He's the main bad guy from it, the leader. I remember when they showed them on preview earlier this year and stuff. I was like, they're really cool, and they are really nice. I mean, the models, as I said, are stunning. Same with the Underworlds. I think some of the Underworlds models are probably the best models that GW have ever done.
For multiple reasons, because they're push fit. So I know that was the design is like to get like card players like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that into the hobby, because they're really easy to build, which is great. They're color coordinated, which means you don't have to paint them if you don't want them.
No.
But then for like hobbyists like us that are hardcore, just like, ooh, that's a cool character to lead my army, I might just get that, because it's like such a genius sort of piece of marketing, really, when you think about it. It's like, you guys know what you're doing when you did that. Everyone wants those models. I
mean, in the exhibition at Warhammer World, that little area where they've got all the Underworld warbands is like a little concentrated collection of pretty much the best models they've ever made. I was just like, everything's so, like those vampires, I could paint that vampire again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
It's such a stunning looking model.
Yeah. As soon as when I opened that starter set, Jacob was looking. I built the models, and Jacob was looking at them, and he goes, "What are these vampires?" And he goes, "Can I play those ones?" Yeah.
There's not a single vampire in there I don't like. Every single one of them, even like the little guy with the wings and the mace. Yes. He's still really cool. Like the big guy, he looks like, I don't know, like what is it, Azog the Defiler from The Hobbit. He's got some
serious von cast on.
He definitely does. Oh, there he is. Look at that, just like, he is immense, right next to that necromancer as well. Teeny tiny necromancer. But every single one in that set is just like amazing. I need to get hold of the new vampire for Warhammer Plus, because I really like him as well.
I have secured that this evening. My mate's just ordered his, and I've gone, how much on for it? He went, so
nice. So, need that.
Absolutely.
It'll find its way into your old world army, Dan. Maybe.
Yes, it is. It is. I need to convert my White King battle standard bearer.
Yes,
That's the next thing I want to do.
Looking forward to seeing your painting on these. But going back to WarCry then, so you mentioned about how easy it is to make up your own bands effectively. And you mentioned on one of your painting phase shows that you're thinking about using it for Shatterpoint as well. I just wonder if you can talk a bit about how easy you think it is to kind of transfer it over to other games, systems, other even historical. I mean, when I found out you didn't have your SPG rules anymore, I said, well, could you do Napoleonic Warcry? Would it work? So to speak. Have you tried doing anything else with these yet, or these kind of ideas at the moment?
I've done a very minimal amount. So I've put some pictures of some of the Star Wars figures I painted onto the Optimal Game State sort of crater, and that was more so I can play some games with my lad, because he understood the fighter cards a bit. I wanted to try and get him into like playing the game a bit more and understanding, like, if I roll this amount of dice, I've got to get this number on it, that's how many like wounds to take on you. So I'm slowly like getting him into like wargaming. And I thought, because he loves Star Wars, having like Star Wars figures on there, and because I give him loads of like the old Legion Rebels and Stormtroopers, which are nice, but I sprayed the Stormtroopers white, I sprayed the Rebels green, nice and simple. I think Luke I sprayed beige, and like Darth Vader I sprayed black, and then just give him like a colour for the lightsabers. He loves it. And it's like quite simple, but just did a couple of those, got some cards, not printed them out, but then it started getting my head going, like, so I could do this for Napoleonics. I could actually like make a sharp, I mean, I've played Chosen Men, which we get to, but I like the rule system. And I recently showed Dave Andrews, who's been working for the business for years. He loves, like, he does all sorts of things like historical, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. But he often looks at rule systems and thinks, how can I use that to do different games? Because he's often like found a cool rule system and used it for something entirely different you wouldn't expect it for. And he wanted to do something with shooting in Napoleonic. So I was like, I've not really got enough stuff painted yet, because I was doing the Chosen Men thing at the time. I was like, do you fancy playing WarCry? I know the rules inside and out. and I think you'll like the rule system. I was like, well, I'll give it a go. And he was like, I really like the rule system. I really like this. And he's like going, I want to do like a skirmish game for like Civil War and like Napoleonics as well. And I was like, well, I'm thinking the same thing. So, because I did it with like say Lord of the Rings and use the Lord of the Rings rules for to make sharp. Both me and Duncan did it, and we just had like some lined paper and the rules were the same. So my camera's going mad again. It's like, I don't know, what do you want me to do, Peach? I've stood still, for God's sake. So we had some lined paper and we wrote like the stats down, and we mostly just used like Men of Rohan for like light cavalry, Men of Gondor for heavy cavalry, and then it was like skirmishes was like Rohan, for like guards it was like Men of Gondor, and then because the stat lines are very similar, even orcs we use for like irregulars like Landveer and whatever, because they got like a rubbish courage value. And we just jotted them down on a piece of paper, which we kept, but for the love of me, I don't know if Duncan's got it, I don't know if I've got it, or if I just binned it, because we did that over 10 years ago. But it's easy you to just like look at the stat lines of humans and then just go, yeah, that'll be a rifleman, that'll be a voltigeur, that'll be like a normal line infantry, because they have quite a similar stat line the humans do. Then it just upgrades a little bit depending on the weapon or like what they do. If it's like a Ranger of Gondor, that's a rifleman, right? Give him a better bow, give him a crossbow, give him the rules for a crossbow, because well, at least the last time I played, you can't move and shoot it, right? The crossbow,
24 strength 4.
Yeah, but you're a better shot, so you have to get yourself in position, then take the shot. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely easily workable with Middle Earth, but yeah, the way the WarCry works, you can just do cooler, more intimate skirmishes, as opposed to like 50-40 figures versus 50-40 figures. You're talking like 9 or 10 versus 9 or 10, which brings me to the Silver Bayonet, because I've not played it yet. I've been reading through the rules. That is about that kind of size. That's like 8 figures, 10 figures. I'll see how the game works. I might really like it, but then I might just go, I'm just going to do this for WarCry, just tweak WarCry rules, because they're so good. They're just so easy to learn and just so universal. I'd say they'd make, and Lord of the Rings is the same. Lord of the Rings for me is like the best strategy game for 10 plus, probably even less than that, to like 70 to 80 figures, because I've done it with more figures before War of the Ring was a game system. Me and Duncan used to put like our Lord of the Rings figures on movement trays, so they started off like a bit like, if you ever watched Time of Commanders or done Total War, they start off in nice shiny blocks, but then when they get into combat, that's when the melee gets a bit confusing, which is great, because then you're like, your banner bearers are getting like cut off, and you're like, oh, I need to get the banner bearer and like try and get out of trouble and stuff. And eventually the movement trays get removed because it gets a bit messy. But we've played like games with like 100 figures plus for Lord of the Rings using that rule system, not massively complex. So I think Lord of the Rings is great for scale of that magnitude, whereas WarCry is good for like the more intimate sort of like 10 less kind of stuff. So yeah, they're so agnostic.
I think that's what
companies is a bit restrictive, I found, like in terms of it's a great game and everything, but it very much restricts your warband, so you lose some of that flavor.
Agreed.
It's quite interesting. Have you I can't remember which Western game it is that's a modified version of the
Old West
rules.
Old West,
that's supposed to be really, really good as well.
Yeah, they had a whole team of it, and that's what I think Jervis was going to do some stuff with as well, because he initially started with that. He had like Rob Broom, who ran it as well, and they did Old West, and they did the Frontier, so you could do like Alamo and stuff like that. And then they did, I think it was just called the Great War, because Dave Andrews and Ali literally supplied all their models for it, because they have Great War miniatures and they do all First World War stuff. And then I was working on, I think it was called the Sands of the Colosseum, or the Colosseum, which was just like a cool arena themed, using Middle Earth strategy game, but in an arena environment. And then your gladiators progress or die off. So it was like a cool campaign of like, you've got a team of gladiators, you can hire lions and tigers and stuff like that. You literally have your gladiator sort of, I don't know what you want to call them, like troop or group, versus opposing troops of gladiators in the sands, and then just, see how they get on. Maybe you might get Tigerius the Gaul, I don't know. Maybe eventually as time goes on, he becomes that good and gets smashed in the face by Russell Crowe. But yeah, it's it was good, but it died a death after that. That was the last rule system I think they did, because they didn't want to do historical stuff, which was a shame.
Yes, definitely. I like the sound. I definitely like the sound of the smaller numbers.
Yeah.
Have you had a game called Sharp Practice?
Peachy, I do. Yes, I have. I was going to play that or Chosen Men for this battle report that we did. It seemed a bit bigger than Chosen Men, and I didn't want to paint too much.
And that's the thing. I think you could kind of get up towards more SPG sort of size games.
Yeah.
And I think with all the games and things I've got going on, I'd be looking for something a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, I've got some from Brigade Games in America. They did some not sharp miniatures, Paul Hicks sculpts, I believe.
Oh yes, yeah.
So I've had some of those knocking around in the box for ages. I've got some of the War Games Atlantic Rifleman as well, and then lots of other bits left over from loads of 28mm black powder stuff, which I decided to not go ahead with when Epic Waterloo came out. I just realised, like, this is the scale for doing the mass battles kind of stuff. So yeah, I quite like the idea of exploring WarCry maybe for it, but I'm interested to see how you get on with Silver Bayonet, because obviously you don't have to have the weird stuff in it either. You can just use the basic mechanic, and that might be a perfect skirmish system as well.
For me, what's hooked me with Silver Bayonet is the choices you can get, because you get quite a plethora of different archetypes in there. You get your standard, like you can have a right, because it breaks it down into like nations. So you pick your nation first. So there's only 6, but obviously with playing games and you want to, I want to be Portuguese and not Spanish, but you can like just use the English or the Spanish forces, whichever. But you have like 6 nations, which is Britain, France, Prussia, Russia, Austria, and Spain. And then there's all these characters. Some are specific to certain nations. So there's like a swordsman, like elite swordsman or duelist swordsman, which is only like Prussia and Spain, because they're very much into like their sword play and this, that, and the other. I was like, but surely every faction can have those. But it's like, it kind of gives you a bit of a narrative, like, well, you could, but they're more prevalent in these nations. Highlander, only Brits get a Highlander, and then you get like other like random things that would be like only specific to like Russia, like Warrior of Faith or whatever, and there'd be only something that's specific to Spain. But they're all like themed in like the horror aspect. So you might have like supernatural investigator. You might have witch hunter, you might have elite veteran monster hunter and stuff like that. So that they're the weirder ones, but the normal ones are just like light cavalry, heavy cavalry, infantryman, grenadier, rifleman, which you could probably use as a Grenzer or whatever if you're doing Austrians. So I was looking at those, and I've looked at some of the North Star figures as well, just to see what they've done. And what I really like the idea of is having like you pick a hero, so you pick an officer, and he has in brackets like 100 points. This is for every nation, doesn't matter. But every character after that has like a points associated with it. So it could be like an infantryman's like 10, a rifleman's like 15. It's a heavy cavalryman, because they come with a horse, and they do, like Lord of the Rings, encourage you to do a horse version and one on foot, because you might lose the horse. I mean, if you're in like Dracula's castle, then the horse is going to be no use. You might have to dismount and like climb up the stairs. But you only need about 8 figures. So at most it's 8. That's the maximum you can have, is 8 figures. One has to be the officer, and then it's 7 figures, no more. It can be less. And I've literally built my British last night, and I was using all my spare plastics from like the Perry's, Victrix, War Games Atlantic. I've done like 3 infantrymen. One's going to be a British guard. So I'll give him like the blue collars and cuffs of a guardsman. I'm doing one as just like a light infantryman. So he's got a musket, but he's obviously for a light infantry, like flank company. So I might do him as like Oxfords or something like that, because they had light. And I think it's Monmouthshire did it as well. I've done a KGL. So I'm going to have a German in there, because he's British. He's King's German Legion. They work for the Brits. I'm having that. I'm going for that dude. I've got a Highlander. You can have an artillerist, it's called. They don't bring a cannon, but they work for the artillery, so they know about bombs and like explosions. So they come armed with like a saber and a pistol. And I literally just used the War Games Atlantic. No, it wasn't. It was Rifleman lower half, and I just had like some random cavalry, because you get like light cavalry from the Perrys. I used the upper body of a light cavalry from the Perrys and the Tarleton head. So it looks like one of the horse artillery guys. And he's allowed a pistol and a saber. So I was like, cool, that's that sorted. But the thing it allows you to do is you can play around with like conversions and stuff. Now I'll take some photos of these. They're still only undercoated grey, but it's in its early stage. But you can literally give your Highlander, it says like musket and cartridge box or a massive weapon. And I was like, I'm gonna give him a claymore. And it even says in the book, like, you know, you don't have to model these as if it's historically accurate. You could model them that they've claimed a cuirass's breastplate, and you want to give your officer a cuirass's breastplate that he killed in the squares at Waterloo. He's kept that as a trophy. He might even like the helmet, so he wears that. He still wears all the colours of like the British foot guards that he joined, but he likes his breastplate because it's lucky, not for the guy that died, but for him. So you can model them how you want. You might go, you know, I'm going to do like a funny shako or a funny hat, or I'm going to use one of the Perry foot knight bodies and give him a shako because that's going to be my officer. He's got like an old suit of armor that was handed down from his father, so I'm going to give him a suit of armor, because you can give them armor as one of the things later on as like attributes or whatever, or equipment. It says breastplate, but it's like you just count it all as armor because it adds to your defense and stuff. So you can actually then go down the realms of making it a little bit more like a supernatural team, where you're like, well, this guy knows about vampires, so he's got like a gorget on that protects him from being bitten. He's got his like rifle, he's got his shako, but he's in full plate armor. So you can keep it normal that feels historical, you can go a bit more sort of supernatural with it and make him feel a little bit more like a ragtag team that's like. And the other thing it does say in the book is like, you can have one ally from any other faction. So if you wanted your redcoats and you wanted a French I don't know, old guard that they captured and once befriended during a battle or whatever, you can have that. Just have one person from any other faction if you wanted that, or a Russian grenadier, or like a Spanish partisan or something like that. So if you wanted to, you could do like all British and then just have like one Russian or whatever, and just play around with it. They've only got the Silver Bayonet rules at the moment, and something called the Castle Carpathia, I think it is. Which I'm waiting for, but yeah, the rest of the stuff, there's like Canada and Egypt. I don't know what spooky goes off in Canada, but apparently it's got spooky stuff going off in it. I guess it's so you can do the War of 1812, but
yeah, it makes sense. What a great opportunity as well in such a small warband to paint 8 different uniforms.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
so
absolutely brilliant.
I've got a dragoon, so I've got a dragoon uniform to do. Whether I do like a standard sort of like the red dragoons, like the medium ones, or go for the light dragoons and go like with the royal blues or whatever. I've got a hussar. My God, how many different like regiments of like flamboyant color schemes do the hussars have? And then the Highlander, get to play around with tartan. And then if I wanted to, I could turn the rifleman into a cacador, so I could just do like a Portuguese dude and like give him brown.
Yeah,
or whatever. But yeah, you're right, literally. And when it comes, that's just the British, and you normally expect them to be like red coats, and like the artillery have like dark blue or whatever. But then when you go to all the other sort of nations, you can just go mad and just do a right mishmash. So I'm really excited. I want to do all 6 eventually. So I've ordered some stuff for the French. I've got a load of bits here anyway. So I'm going to do a French warband, a British warband. They do face off against each other in the game, but you can do solo play or do like cooperative play if you like, so you can play on your own if you wanted to, but you have to have like some monsters, because you have like clue tokens scattered across the battlefield, and some of those might be like, let's say it's the Trolls Bridge, so you've heard like some rumors about like villagers being taken away and murdered and this and the other, so your job is to investigate what's going off. Another foreign team has turned up, so you have like a bit of a skirmish between each other, and then one of you finds the clue and a giant troll turns up, so you both have to deal with the troll. You're like, no. So then the troll is, I think, operated by the person who isn't activating that time. So you have like a bit like WarCry. It's like you activate so much and then they activate so much, because in WarCry you activate a figure, they activate a figure, whereas Silver Bayonet, who has priority, activates half their warband, and then your opponent then activates all theirs, then you activate the other half, and then the monsters get to go. You're like, oh no. It's interesting. I've not played it, I've read it, I've watched a couple of battle reports on YouTube, and it looks good fun, and very story driven. So yeah, I'm looking forward. Watch this space for Silver Bayonet, I think. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised is what I was.
Looks like there's going to be
squids. Just looked it up. 24 quid. That's quite cheap.
Not expensive. You get away from
cheaper than the Codex.
Yeah. So everything's in there as well. Your armor list is in there. All your scenarios are in there. So yeah, definitely cheaper than the Codex.
You start buying your rule books from places like North Star. It's a world of difference if you're used to GW prices, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Here's something. Sorry, I just rambling in there. Here's something I never thought about doing, and I do it a lot more now. There's a few eBay sellers that just sell a single sprue, because I got a load of Frostgrave stuff, and I didn't want like a whole box of Frostgrave. I was like, I just want to see what one looks like. I wanted a sprue of like humans. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I've just done that with like a bunch of Napoleonics. I've literally ordered a sprue of Bavarians from Vixtrix, a sprue of 2 sprues of like dragoons on foot. And then just some other random, like a sprue of Perry French that I don't have. So I can then like just mishmash them together. So that then becomes even more inexpensive, because it was like £4 for a sprue.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 figures. And I'm like, why haven't I ever done this before?
I do it all the time, especially when it's a box of 30. And it works out cheaper to have the whole box, but sometimes you don't need it. I did it when I was buying ghouls, direwolves, and zombies for the Mordheim stroke WarCry project. I think I got the Cursed City zombies. There's 5 different sculpts, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
£4.99 for the 5 of them, plus £1.60 postage.
Perfect.
Cheap. It's really cheap.
No,
so
absolutely, yeah.
Well, they'll do sort of thing. So yeah, definitely buying individual sprues is and when you go to historicals, and I guess Perry stuff,
especially if you're doing like Mordheim, you don't need a lot, do you? You need like just a handful. So yeah, buying like a box of like 20 is I think the Dead Walker sets, 20 zombies. It's like, what are you going to do with it? Unless you do a scenario with lots of zombies in it, great. But how often does that happen? So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love it. Thank you, eBay.
Always good. So we mentioned Mordheim there. So we've talked about the wonders of WarCry and how I suppose flexible it is and how much potential it's got. Do we need Mordheim still? Could you? I mean, I've only just thought of this, but could you just play old world using WarCry? And you still got your campaign system. I'm guessing they're different kind of games, but
absolutely, I think you could. I think there's more minutiae in like detail with Mordheim, with some of the skills and some of the like progression tables than what WarCry currently has. WarCry's the current campaign rules or narrative campaign rules are better than the first edition, because they're a little bit more tweaked. When I'm talking about rule changes, there's only been one rule change, but like the campaigns are tweaked because they've got better at thinking about narratives and stuff, and like making it a bit more well, like what I always refer to as like the classics, like Necromunda and Mordheim, where your figure went on a journey, and it could be that eventually it loses a leg. A lot of like the kill teams and WarCry initially didn't have that extra like little bit of detail and story to it, whereas I'd do it for myself, I'd think about it, but they certainly have that mechanic in the rule. Because I played a game WarCry where I've got this old wizard lady for my Dark Oath Savages, and I've called her, I ended up calling her like Thedra the Ungifted, because she just can't cast spells. She's supposed to be a spellcaster. She can't cast spells, right? She's rubbish at casting spells. So she's got that as like a title now, just Ungifted. And then my mate Nige was using his Iron Golem, which are like the ones that have like the big red sort of armor, domed sort of helmets, look a bit like deep sea divers. And she got killed by one, or beaten by one, by some stairs, which was just like, oh, you pushed her down the stairs. We had a laugh. And then when we rolled for injury table, she broke a leg. So I was like, oh, well, that worked out well. She literally got pushed down some stairs by a big burly sort of blacksmith and then just broken a leg. So it writes itself. So it kind of has it, but it's not quite there that Mordheim has. And I think Mordheim has a nostalgia to it. It's a well thought out rule system anyway. And I just love it. You can use WarCry, but you have to put effort into it. I think you have to put some time into it, some work into it, just to get it right. And you got the narrative there and stuff.
So, okay, talking about Mordheim some more then. So your last video on the painting phase or painting video was a cool Mordheim, sort of a bit of a chatter and a paint job on a classic mini. So have you got current?
Was he in the box?
Yes, he was actually in the box.
I forget how beautifully packaged the Mordheim stuff was.
It was beautiful.
Everything about that was by far one of the most well thought out. I think like boxes, and the only time before was possibly Necromunda, where everything has stuff, hazard stripes and stuff on it. It had that feel to it.
So I missed it all. I missed it first time.
Oh no!
So I went. So that whole era was when I went to uni, and I was pretending I wasn't a nerd and trying to ignore it all at that point. So I missed it all first time round. But yeah, I saw that box and it's just fantastic. So you've painted that up recently. Have you got plans in the works at the moment for a Mordheim campaign, or is it was it just a bit of a one-off?
So we had a guy called Steve Box on chatting, and he's very tournament scene based. Vanguard Tactics, don't know if you've ever seen any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of, proverbial foot in my face kind of thing. I was just like, got onto the subject of Lord of the Rings. I was like, but I guess that's not like, you're not probably not into that. It was like, why would you think that? And that was the thing that got him into the hobby. We got talking about it. I was like, well, that told me I should probably think before I open my mouth. But it wasn't like, we're having an argument about it. It was just like a very good point. It was like, no, that's what got me into the hobby. And we got talking about Mordheim. Mordheim's one of his favorite games as well. So I mentioned that I've got this Sister Sigma set, and he's got he's not got anything, so I passed on my Possessed. That was quite a big
generous.
I know a few people were like, why are you doing that? I was like, because we get to play a game at some point. And if they've been sat in my box, my Volta Potential, as I called it, for decades. So he was very stoked about doing Possessed because it was something he always fancied doing. I was like, well, I've got them, you can paint them. I've got my Sister Sigma. And then I said to Pat, we should probably do a video on it as well, just paint some stuff up, because he wants to do a game, invite me down to do a game of Mordheim. He's currently building up a board because he showed me some work in progress stuff. He also wants to do, it's like a two kind of fold thing really. It's like using classic models in a game, but also using some newer stuff, because he wants to do Cities of Sigma. So you might like, and I'm kind of like, that'd be really cool, is doing Cities of Sigma in classic Empire, old worldy kind of color schemes. What would they look like as Marienburg? What would they look like as like Reichland? We see them all as these new fandangled cities that they made, and they're all cool. But I'm going to go old school with mine. And so we've been talking about that and doing like Cities of Sigma in Mordheim as Reichlanders, Middenheimers, Marienburgers. I've got my updated Sisters of Sigma, so we might do a classic game and a more updated game as well. But yeah, I want to do more stuff for the channel anyway, and that was like a bit of a sort of scratch at an itch just to see how well it was received, and it's done all right. But the way of the internet, and you probably know this from doing YouTube, sometimes you have to package a video in a way that it's something different than what it is. If I did a paint guide on how to paint a Sister of Sigma, no one would watch it. So if I wax lyrical about Mordheim but paint a figure at the same time whilst waxing lyrical about why I think Mordheim's ace, that kind of helps a bit, and it worked for the WarCry video as well. I mean,
you got to tell a story, haven't you?
Yeah,
you got to find a narrative and a hook, that early hook. But
I love doing, like, it's not clickbait. We call it click truth in the painting phase, because we often answer it. Clickbait often don't. And I was like, is WarCry, because previously we did the WarCry video, and I was like, is WarCry the best skirmish game? And you can tell people don't actually watch the video because they comment and go, no, clearly it's this game, Infinity. And if you watch like the first 2 seconds, I like to say, is it the best fantasy skirmish game? Obviously it can't compete with Lord of the Rings because that's amazing, and if more time was around, it'd be like picking your favorite child. So I kind of like say it's
cover
good,
yourself
but it's
early.
Yeah, it's not as good as them. But you could tell people didn't watch the video. It was literally in the first 5 seconds. I mentioned those ththings, so it was really funny just to see how like people deal with watching like videos, and some don't.
They just can't resist it.
I have to comment, how dare they say this, how dare they put this statement. But yeah, it was a twofold thing really, to see how Mordheim would be received, and although it's not got like the views that you'd expect from like a channel of the size that we're at now, the comments are all, this is the other thing I tend to judge by, is not always necessarily the likes, but the amount of people that are engaging in the comments, because you tend to work out you've got quite a loyal fan base. If you're getting like 30-40 comments on a 90k video, that's all right, you got 90,000 views, but you got 30-40 comments because it's just a video, people are watching it. But if you're getting like 200-300 comments on a 10k video, You can see that people are going, oh, I really like Mordheim. This is my favorite journey. And so you're like, well, we've got a hardcore customer base there that likes Mordheim. Might be worth doing something down the line and showing Jeff and Pat how to play Mordheim, getting some warbands built up. So it's definitely on the cards, I think, on the channel to do a lot of different games. And I like to do a little campaign for each of them, whether it's like 3 or 4 games or a handful of games or something like that, and see how they do. And, you know, down the line, maybe revisit it. We do need to finish the Necromunda thing. I pitched that wrong at the time. Annoyingly, I kind of was like, should have said it was a pilot, but I was so enthusiastic and said, oh, this is part 1 of 4 parts. And we found it really hard just to film part 1 and edit it. So it was like, when we move, we'll do the other 3 parts. Because I've got everything made, got everything written up, got everything painted. So it's there. It's just waiting to go.
It's time, isn't it? I've made that mistake so many times. I used to do a lot of project vlogs and number them, and then people will get to the end of it and go, when's your next one? You go, well, I haven't worked on that for a little while. It's just, so I've tried to move away from that a little bit now. It's about how you label it, I suppose. But it's easy to kind of promise something because you really want to do it at the time. But
yeah, absolutely.
But it sounds like that kind of content will, even if it's lower numbers, some of those things are going to be evergreen in a certain sense. Like all your interviews with people from the studio past.
Yeah.
They will keep getting numbers for years to come because people will search a certain person, old hammer, blah blah blah, and it'll come up. And I think things like Mordheim will as well because it's already a niche game, isn't it? I've been watching stuff recently, and I'm watching videos from Eric's Hobby Workshop, which I've watched before, but he's got his Mordheim videos. They're 2 or 3 years old now, but they're just as valid now because I want to learn about Mordheim right now. So suddenly it makes sense. So some of those videos might be more evergreen than something that's more edition based for 40k or something that once you've moved on.
Templars Crusade stuff. He's not done videos for 10 years probably now, and he's still getting comments on them now. It's madness.
Yeah.
About him. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's like, your phones listen to what you're talking about and stuff like that, but I'm seeing more Mordheim content, not just on like YouTube, but like on Instagram. There's more people like painting up old stuff.
Cities Sigmar stuff.
Yeah,
it's massively mixed. That I saw someone had converted a City Sigmar into Sisters of Sigmar.
Yes,
literally.
Yes, yeah.
It's Millie putting some stuff. It's beautiful.
They did a matriarch, didn't they? Was it a matriarch or Sister Superior? Yeah, so good.
That popped up today, and I was just
I've not seen that. If you, I want to find that.
I will send you it. I'll send you it, Stu.
That's cool. I've seen a few people mixing them with Empire State Troop kits and making very good Empire armies for the old world, and they look pretty good.
Plenty of floppy hats, so I can easily do that.
Yeah, that's it. I was going to say, for me, I'm looking at using those models. I might use some of those models, and for me, it'll be swapping out the heads because for me, those helmets don't care. It's just me, but those helmets say Age of Sigmar, whereas the rest of it, it's fully interchangeable. So you change that one key identifying part of the model. Yeah, you change the head, and away you go. I might do that actually with the warband. So I might magnetize the heads. So the helmet guys magnetize the heads as well. That's the WarCry standard. What are called hunters. Switch them over to as witch hunters, and I'll stick on a couple of Empire heads and Bretonian heads and stuff I've got knocking about. And
isn't they like one of the old state Empire militia sets for Mordheim? And I think it's one of the young bloods for the Reichland have that kind of like big domed helmet that looks similar to the Sigma. So you could like file it down a bit, make it look a bit beaten, and use like 1 or 2 of them. But too many of them would seem a bit much, I think.
You've seen the prices go up on stuff as well, like Aina Sword of Twilight. You could pick him up for about a tenner recently, and he's just going up and up and up. And if you could ever get the Free Knight on the horse with the old super mustache one,
I give mine away.
He's gone. He's mad money now. Yeah, he's so much money.
Give it away to someone who like really were like looking for him, and I was just like, I feel so bad because you've really been looking for him. And this was like going like 2-3 years ago now in the studio. And I was like, I've got him if you're going to paint him up. And he was like, oh my God, yeah. And then they never touched it. So I was like, should have kept him, shouldn't I? Never mind. Lesson learned.
There's a bunch of that stuff. Carnival of Chaos.
Carnival of Chaos.
All of that stuff's just, I miss it.
Yeah.
I want to do Muscaven again.
So good.
tempted by Skaven, but I've got too many other projects first. But with again, with that kind of semi-tangent, and I mentioned, it's probably me mentioning it more than anything else, mentioning Old World. Have you got plans for Old World? Do you think that's something that's going to be something that's going to tempt you back? Or
yeah, I mean, I've got an Old World army still, because I, like an idiot, I rebase my undead onto rounds to use in Age of Sigmar, and I think I played one game with them, and I'm like, do I just rebase them back? That's a lot of effort, but I don't know. I've not played
back onto bigger bases.
Onto bigger bases,
yeah. You've had to do it anyway.
So... Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and is it less effort than painting a new army?
Well, no. I mean, you're right. I mean, I love it because they were very sort of Karstein-esque. And I've got my Talabheland Empire state. I've also got a load of Dogs of War and dwarves upstairs in the attic somewhere. So I've got plenty of things on squares, but I kind of want to do the new Cities of Sigmar for Old World. I don't know if it'll trigger some people or not, but yeah, I mean, for me, it'll be Norn. I'll do them as Norn because it will just like, especially with the sort of gun lines and the cannons.
That cannon thing.
Yeah. I just think it screams Norn.
You can make them a private mercenaries army or something, hence the non-standard uniform. You can do anything you want.
That's something I always wanted to do, and I never got around to doing it. Was doing, if you remember Shadow of the Horn Rat and Dark Omen, is Morgan Bernhardt's Grudgebringers. I always wanted to do an army of all the different sort of like hired mercenaries you can get in that game. So you get like your swordsmen, your crossbows, your cannon, Morgan Bernhardt is cavalry, and then do like Luther Flame Strike, and then just all the other random units you could find during the game. That is something I started thinking about, and then the Old World blew up, and then we went to Age of Sigmar. I was like, oh, I'll never do that, so I might do that. I know it's the wrong era, but
they mentioned in one of the dev diaries, haven't they, about it? Looks like it might be set initially around the Border Princes, unless that's changed, because obviously things have changed over time, haven't they?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and I'm kind of banking on that with the lore I'm working, it doesn't really matter, but the lore I'm working on, again, if you're around the Border Princes, mercenaries and things, that's kind of what I was going to do. Something similar with my empire, might be mercenary based rather than a prince, so to speak. So you do what you want, and
exactly.
Sigmar models will be perfect for it.
I don't let rules get in the way. If I want to do Morgan Bernhardt and his Grudgebringers, I'm going to do it.
It'll be awesome to see as well.
I'm hoping they reboot the Great Swords more than anything else. Like do a Sigmar, because then I'll do Ostland, because I used to have an Ostland army. So they're all in the black carapace. So I had 40 of them, metal as well.
Beautiful.
Stupid.
I can't wait to do Empire. I'm doing these Bretts first, but Empire and Dwarves are my real loves. So it's kind of
same. Yeah,
it's just wanted to pick something I knew that was going to be well supported around launch time. So I thought, well, let's have some fun.
Do an unsupported armies too. Make life difficult for yourself. That's what I'm doing.
I'm so glad I kept the we only did a handful of them. I wish I never got the elf one, but they did the uniform and heraldry guide. It was like a small, so not quite A4, it was like a bit more square than not A3, sorry, A5. It was like a bit larger than A5. And I've got the Empire one still, with all like the different like nightly orders and random sort of like
it's a lovely book.
It's so good.
I used to have it. I can't believe I sold it.
Yeah,
I got rid of too much.
Well, you do, don't you? I mean, I'm glad I've still got all my older army books and like things like the End Times books and stuff, because whether you like the End Times or not, the colours sort of like vignettes that are in there and all like the different uniform things are so useful. So yeah, plenty of research and info at my hands.
Definitely. Right then. Well, I think we've it's getting quite late now, and I think we've talked a lot about skirmish games, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But what we are going to do before we let you go, well, you can leave if you want. I'm not going to force you to stay. You can arrange for the doorbell to go off again. I want to talk. We missed the news out earlier. I was so excited to talk hobby with you. There's a couple of things. First up, have you heard of Valor and Fortitude?
No, you're introducing me to some new stuff, so I'm interested.
So this was Jervis and the Perrys' own quick Napoleonic rules. So it's their version of Black Powder on 4 pages. So you can see the a la early AOS kind of themes coming there. There's a new, that was free in Wargames Illustrated. There's a second edition coming out in the next issue. So can't remember the issue number, but I thought that it's something be interesting to try with my epic armies. I know the people that watch the channel might be interested. So, but I just wondered if you tried it. You've not tried black powder, but it's designed that you can use it with any scale, fully scale and figure agnostic. But it's designed to be another black powder essentially. And the rules are all free on the Perry's website anyway.
Oh, check them out then. Yeah,
and it's basically again the nation stuff is built into the special rules on the army list rather than in the basic things. So that's one thing. So that one's coming out soon. As he leans across, and then we have these, which I did show you in a break. So Damien very kindly sent us, so putting the magazines in front of the microphone, not the smartest thing, very kindly sent us both the latest 2 issues of SBG magazine.
So
they'll be out in the next day or so. I've recorded little reviews of these, but I've done them as shorts. So those of you who want to see them, I'm going to have a little look. It's a very quick flip through. But these are full color.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Is this all his own stuff?
He gets guests on to do different stuff.
Amazing.
These are amazing. So the first 3 issues you can get as PDFs. So go out. I'll send you the links, and then you can order these directly from them. So they're available. When did 14 go on sale, Dan? Wasn't that?
It was at
Ardacon. Yeah, that's when they launched that issue. They tend to do a couple a year, but these are just absolutely fantastic. So
that's amazing.
Issue 13. They just put on these massive games. There's a battle report. I'm very careful not to flick through because you get to find out who won if you flick to the wrong page. But so this was a sort of attack on Edoras, which was in issue 13 was the main thing, and then there's modeling in there as well and painting guys. Amazing. It's very much kind of battle games in Middle Earth, stroke that era of White Dwarf themed type magazines, but they're really, really, really sort of high standard. And then issue 14. Helm's Deep.
Nice. Oh, good shot there, Aragorn.
You can imagine what the centre spread.
Yeah, that is amazing. So what can men do against such reckless hate? So good.
As a fan of Middle Earth gaming, I would recommend you check these out because these are brilliant. They got better and better over the years. As I said, I've done videos on them before. Regular subscribers will have probably seen those. I've got reviews already on the channel. So I thought I'd do something different this time rather than a full sit-down review. Just did them as shorts and maybe get a different sort of people. Mark and Dan's going to do a proper review and shove it up on the little YouTube channel we have attached to the Frying Pan podcast, just to kind of hit our regular listeners. I'll say regular listeners. We've not put a show out for 6 months because we're doing this, but it's there will be a video review of them as well, and Dan will be doing that, and I'll do the
will release something for us sooner or later. It's coming. It's coming.
We're just on a Middle Earth break. We're not on a.
Well,
it's not over.
We can't keep flogging that horse, can we? We don't go to events, do we? So there's nothing to talk about.
No, we were narrative gamers completely. During lockdown, we played loads of the narrative scenarios from what's the book?
It was Fall of the Necromancer. We played a lot of that. Quest of the Ring Bearer. We played
Quest of the Ring Bearer mainly. We did loads of those, and you talked about playing games using camera, so I hosted them all here, and Dan. Dan was on the other end, and we're like, right, we made lots of content from that, which was good fun.
Amazing.
Like an age ago now. But yeah, I just wanted to shout those bits. So there wasn't much news, but wanted to shout those magazines out. Thank Damien and Tom for sending them over. And definitely go and check them out. Dan, have you got any news or shout outs you want to do before we close the show out?
Anything I've forgotten? I'm being quite boring at the moment.
I've got one more. Actually, I've just finished reading Drachenfels, which was book 2 in the first 17 GW books for the Jordan Sorcery Book Club. I know you met Jordan. You met Jordan.
I love Jordan. He's great.
So I will be recording that this Wednesday with Jordan. So it's a podcast thing that he puts out. So each month we've read a book and we do a book club chat, and I'll be recording that on Wednesday. And I love the book. It was really, really cool. There's a bit of spoilers there, so we will be talking about that, and look out for that soon. Depending on when I get this edited and out, there might be a link for that in the show notes here, but we will see. What about you, Peachy? Have you got anything you'd like to shout out before we go? Anything you like to pimp or promote? Give everyone another pitch of your channel and stuff.
I would, well, obviously, Painting Phase, come join us, come watch us. We do all sorts, but I'd like to shout out Optimal Game State, because they've done a lot for like making me look at doing other stuff for than just WarCry. So like say Napoleonic Star Wars. So it's free. You don't have to pay for anything. You just literally just like customize your own cards. If you're into doing WarCry or just like learning Skirmish, you can check out all the stats and all the creator cards on there, and Silver Bayonet. Look forward to trying this out, and maybe my next. This camera's doing my head. I'm going to punch it. It's just like, mate, just go to bed. It's not. You shouldn't be streaming at this time. I was like, no, this is normal time for streaming, you idiot. So yeah, Optimal Game State, Silver Bayonet, Painting Phase, Mordheim, Necromunda, WarCry,
all of it. I'll put lots of links in the show description for those things that people want to check it out. No, it'll be a good resources. I don't know if anyone ever clicks on those links. I do when people mention it sometimes in my videos. So it's handy rather than having to go and Google it. So I'll pop some links in. But thank you so much for giving us your time, giving us a couple of hours here. It's been lovely just chatting with you. And hopefully, viewers, you've enjoyed listening to it all as well. A bit rambly at times, but we always are, aren't we, Dan?
This way.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.
Toodle pip. Bye-bye. Do we all go for poos now? Is that what we're doing?
If you want to.
If that's what's required.